I took a giant get over yourself pill. I learned how to take responsibility for my life and my decisions and my circumstances. Be accountable to yourself, take massive action, and when you get bad results, change what you're doing to get better results next time.
Real estate professionals, welcome back to another one of the RMG Agent Podcast Master Series. This series has been absolutely awesome. Hopefully you guys have gotten as much as I've gotten out of interviewing these incredible people and incredible real estate professionals. As always, go to rmgagentpodcast.com for all of the action items and notes from any of our episodes, as well as our blog, and just to communicate with us. Jake, welcome back to the show, and what do we got going?
We have got another fire episode of the Master Series, and we've got Peter Chabris.
Yes.
So what did Peter get to tell us?
Man, Peter has been a good friend of mine for a long time, like a lot of these guys. And this was just an opportunity. Peter and I have never sat down for as long as we did. We actually sat and we probably talked for 2.5, 3 hours. And so you're just going to get the snippet of it. But we talked about life, we talked about business. And one of the things that came out of the part that we recorded with Peter and I was really the moments in time that I want the agents to listen to, from when you go from choosing to be a victim or having a victim mindset to choosing to being an accountable person. And you hear some really hard crossroads that Peter went through that were mostly between his ears for him to get from not succeeding in our industry all the way to being an absolute master of his craft.
Nice, that's awesome. You know, a lot of us find ourselves kind of in that crossroad sometimes.
Yeah.
And needing maybe a little encouragement or seeing somebody that else has gone through that and how they push through it. So I can't wait to get to hear this episode. And so, as always, we are here to impact, empower, and encourage you in all things that you do. So, on to the episode with Peter.
Here we go. I guess the first question, right, is putting all humility, false humility aside, why should people listen to you, right?
Putting all false humility aside? So I'll qualify myself. I run the Chabris Group. Mm-hmm. I've been licensed I'm on my 22nd year of licensure. I've been running the Chabris Group for 18 years now. Wow. I stepped out of production in 2017. So I've been out of production now I'm in my 7th year of being out of production. About 6 months ago, I'd let go of the day-to-day running of the company. So there's a very talented gentleman that's running the show. Last year, we closed 394 transactions. I don't know why we couldn't find 6 freaking more transactions to say 400. So 394 transactions for about 110 million in volume. Awesome. Very humble average sales price in Cincinnati, and that's not false humility. It really is a humble sales price. So that's one thing. I launched, for those who are Keller Williams parlance, a market center, which basically just means a Keller Williams franchise. I launched a Keller Williams franchise in 2017. Within 3 years, it was the 7th largest real estate brokerage in Greater Cincinnati, where I live. I've since been able to hand that company off to another individual named Tara Smith, who's amazing. She runs the market center better than I could. She's more than doubled its size.
It's amazing.
And I've been lucky enough to retain majority ownership of it. What else? Keller Williams University Master Faculty is something I'm very proud of. I enjoy teaching. I'm a certified leverage instructor for the leverage series at Keller Williams University. And I do some business coaching. What else? I think I'm a pretty good guy. I've been married for over 20 years now.
Awesome.
I have a functional 19-year-old daughter at school.
Yes.
Double major in finance and accounting. I'm incredibly proud of her. And my son, who just turned 17 in his high school, I think he is going to graduate to fully functional human soon.
I love it.
I feel like that's a win.
So you have one that's like, okay,
she's functioning.
Yeah.
We've turned the corner. So I'm excited, man. So I think that's why I should be here. Not for the parenting stuff, but for the real estate business.
Yeah, results will be very, okay, so definitely qualified, especially in this area of leverage and just building a business out of real estate. Give me one or two defining moments in your career, times where, maybe it could have gone either way, or something happened.
Yeah, well, the first one without blinking or hesitating was the Great Recession. Great Recession, I went into the Great Recession thinking that I was special and that I was entitled to different results, and just basically had all this toxic mindset that was the result of the way I grew up.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, qualify that a little bit. So, Reed, we can't choose the circumstances that we're born into.
Sure.
And we can't choose how we're trained to think and feel. I don't think that the way I was trained to think and feel was necessarily healthy. And so I perpetuated a pattern of victim thinking.
Okay, yep.
And always was able to justify lack of success or lack of results, or kind of like flaming out quickly in whatever I pursued as, I could always find a reason why it wasn't me. And that way was always able to maintain this perception that I thought that I was special and different. Which is typical like single child 1980s parenting style, right?
Special, just like everybody else.
Yeah, you're exactly. Boy, did I buy into that one. And so the Great Recession was really kind of like this trial by fire. It was sort of like my crucible, right? It was where I wasn't sure day to day which way I was going to go. I had some people in my court who believed, thank God, my wife and my coach. I think everyone else thought I was going to fail. Here's what I learned. I took a giant get over yourself pill. I learned how to take responsibility for my life and my decisions and my circumstances. And I learned that the only three things that I can control are my mindset, the actions I take, and the reactions I have to the circumstances around me. That's it.
Man.
And when you first realize that, it's scary how little you're in control of. But then once you actually emotionally internalize that, you go, oh, wait a second. This is incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
And when I realize I can only control those three things, well, then I only need to work on those three things. And when you fix your mindset, which for me took 4 years of misery in the Great Recession, and you figure out what the right actions are that complement the mindset and the vision that you have for how you want to live your life. And then I think ultimately when you're able to just have enough of a filter to blink for a second before you react, when you're able to do those three things, you actually are the captain of your own fate. And not until you realize those things are you ever really in control of your life.
Gosh, there's so much to unpack there, because I remember having this experience of being able to protect myself from my own lack of whatever it is by telling myself a story that everybody I saw succeeding, it was because they grew up in perfect circumstances. They were the high school football quarterback, just all of this untrue narrative.
Narratives, yes.
And it felt protective, but it was completely disempowering.
100%. Disempowering is the perfect word. You're undermining, you're not even undermining, you're like sabotaging better versions of yourself in your life when you cast blame out there and instead of taking categorical responsibility for where you find yourself.
Yeah.
Which is a really hard thing to do, and it took me years to cultivate that way of thinking. But then as soon as you take responsibility for everything, you take responsibility for your life. And that's like, that's it. Like I think you said something about leverage. There is no leverage until you take responsibility for yourself. You can't hold anybody responsible to anything else until you take responsibility for yourself. And so many people want to jump into big businesses and big ideas and big egos and all that stuff. Like, man, you just got to get over yourself and take responsibility for yourself first. You can't move past go until you do that.
Wow. So you make it through the Great Recession by eating a lot of humble pie and all the things. Fast forward, what was the next big pivotal moment in your business?
The next pivotal moment in my business was when I launched the Keller Williams franchise.
Okay.
The market center, as we call them. I had been trying to get out of production for 2 or 3 years, actively trying to get out of listings and hand off listings to somebody else. And there were 2 reasons why I couldn't do it. I had hired 4 people, and all 4 of them had not succeeded in the role.
Got it.
There were 2 reasons. The first one is I wouldn't let go, right? One, because your profitability drops when you let go of the listings, just from a strict dollars perspective. The second one, it was such an important part of my identity. The third one is I didn't think anybody could do it as well as I could. So those are all one reason. And the second one was I didn't have the leadership skills to attract the right kind of person, or to really kind of nurture and bake, for lack of a better verb, to nurture and cultivate and grow someone that could grow into that role, because it is the most important production role at the company.
Right, for sure.
So, those four people that preceded the gentleman who wound up being our first listing specialist, I wasn't attracting the right kind of person, and I wasn't leading them away where they could win in my world. So I take responsibility for that. So that was one, and then what happened was in 2017, the Keller Williams region, basically we'd been courting each other and just sort of like dancing around. Hey, Market Center, what do you think? I don't know, maybe later. Let me do this first. And they finally said, hey, it's time to like poop or get off the pot. I can say that. Okay, so it was time. So this gentleman who I was cultivating to be the listing specialist, I probably never would have let go enough for him to win with me because of the things. And so finally I just said, he hadn't gotten to the place where I normally would have set him free. I was just like, dude, you got to go. You'll figure it out. I got to go do this thing or I'm going to lose my opportunity with the region.
Yeah.
And so what was the next hard thing, I think was your question. The next hard thing was understanding that leadership isn't always having the answer, which is kind of what I thought it was. I think what I learned was that leadership is, it's the people business, right? And I had been the product business, service.
Sure.
I was in a service business, but it was a very transactional business model. And leadership, like you're flipping the script, all the things that make you a phenomenal dynamite real estate producer where you're selling over 100 transactions year over year over year.
Yeah.
A lot of those behavioral habits actually undermine your ability to be a great leader.
Wow.
And so I got pretty good at being transactional in real estate transactions. Like that was natural for me as a more of a transactional behavioral style. But understanding that any future success was going to have to be through people and through relationships with people. That was a long road, and that path started in 2017.
Wow. So one of the things, I was talking to Brian Gubernick earlier.
Great dude.
Oh, phenomenal.
One of my faves.
I just love sitting next to smart people like you guys. One of the things he said is, we all of us that kind of started in that same time period and we're cutting our teeth, we all earned the respect of each other actually by producing. Like he just said, we've all gone and built big things, but fundamentally we all produced in real estate sales first.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Tell me about your journey around, like, how did you get really, really good at production, and then what caused you to actually want to make the change?
Out of production?
Well, yeah. So what caused you to get really great at production, right? You had this mindset shift, and then you became the best in the world at just flat out transactions, like getting it done.
Yep.
But then you had something that shifted that caused you to go this leadership direction.
Oh, well, that's very easy. I read a book. Had been licensed for, I want to be a real estate investor. I want to develop real estate.
Okay.
And so I had been in the technology world before real estate. I did what's called product management. And so I figured, I'd been on disability. I blew out my arm doing some things and read a bunch of Robert Kiyosaki books.
Sure.
And if 90% of America's millionaires made or keep their money in real estate, well, I should go do that. Mm-hmm. So I got into real estate. I did some deals. I made enough money on my third real estate development to offset the losses on my first two.
Okay, yeah.
Because I thought I had to do everything and be the smart guy, and I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And so that was like my MBA in the School of Hard Knocks. But I got licensed to sell my stuff and save some money because I was losing money on my first two deals. And so we didn't have any money at the time, and I realized back then you could close a deal like in 3 weeks. That was a typical amount of time. Like in 2002, 2003, you could close a deal in 2 to 3 weeks. And so in real estate development, it's like feast or famine. It's like this 18-month horizon before you get paid. You could do a deal in 14 to 21 days. Like that was my jam because we needed money in 14 to 21 days, not 18 months from now. So I flipped the switch and went into real estate sales, and kind of horsed around. And then our son was born, our second child, and I looked up and realized I'm living a mediocre life. I am not meeting the unspoken expectations that my wife has of us. And if I don't change my game, I'm gonna lose the most important thing that ever happened to me, which is her. And I kind of hate myself, and I'm sick of making reasons why I don't like where I am in my life. So that was when, so I was like, and when was that? Like 2004, 2005. Then I read this book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And I thought, oh, I can be the guy that does that first in Cincinnati. That's my thing. That's where I'm going. And so I got better, but it wasn't until I switched to KW and was on a panel during the Shift Tour. And Tony DeCello was facilitating the Shift Tour. And he interviewed me as part of the panel, and I just pounded him for a couple months, like, coach me, coach me, coach me. And he went to the regional owner. He's like, who is this guy? Why does he keep asking me to coach him? Like, what is the deal with this guy? And Linda McKissick, God bless her, I'll always be in her debt for this. She said, just take him as a client. Do me a favor and take him as a client. And Tony DeCello changed my life. He was like the father he was my second father. Tony focused me. And he cleared up all of this garbage mindset that I've been carried around my entire life. And distilled it down to me to some very simple things, which was like, be accountable to yourself, take massive action, and when you get bad results, change what you're doing to get better results next time.
Sounds like Tony. You're just like, oh, okay, that will fix everything.
That's a great idea.
No, that actually will fix everything.
Yeah, and take more listings. Like that was it. But really, he cleaned up my head and he got me into action, and then he got me like into wicked focus, and then I was relentless. He kind of like uncaged a beast that I don't think I knew was in there. And then I was relentless. So there's a couple things I'm good at. One is I can pour incredible amounts of energy into a singular focus.
It's phenomenal.
I'm very lucky. I mean, every strength is a weakness overused, and it's gotten me a lot of trouble. But when it comes to growing a business and making some income, it's really helpful. I'm also really good at language, and I'm good at communicating. And so if you can couple relentless focus with relentless activity with the ability to communicate, and I'm also coachable, and I always want to be a better version of myself, because your life is always limited to the quality of your own personal development, right?
Yeah.
So those are 3 or 4 things I'm really good at, and I'm clear that I'm good at them, and I doubled down on those things. And so that's how I went quickly to 100 plus transactions per year in a market that was contracting 25% per year.
It's phenomenal.
I don't know. I was just playing to my strengths, Reed. And by the way, I was in a do or die situation. Like, there wasn't an option of failing. This is sort of a hackneyed thing to say, but like, I'm so lucky that time sucked so badly.
Yeah.
That it took that amount of a financial crisis for the country and for our own personal finances to bring out the best version, or at least the most intense version of what I'm capable of. And I'll always be grateful for Tony. I'll always be grateful to the Great Recession. I'll always be grateful for my wife for some reason supporting me during that dark time.
Yeah. It's amazing, because those of us now, they're kind of old dogs.
Yeah.
A lot of us, I can clearly remember there were several pivotal things that I did, and they were just purely out of pain.
Yeah.
Like, there was no, I made a good decision. It was that I felt so boxed in and cornered. The only palatable option was to grow and to change and to evolve and to do the hard thing that was ahead of me.
Yeah. And in retrospect, you typically realize, God, that was one of the most important moments in my life, and I'm profoundly grateful for it in retrospect. I mean, it was horrible in the moment. God, for 4 years, I couldn't even watch the news. I couldn't read the newspaper. I couldn't watch the news. Once a month, I would check the new jobs report, because that was when we would know that the economy was. Once a month, I would look to see what the new jobs number was.
Oh, man.
And then I would never look at the news again, because it was just such a fight to maintain a healthy mindset. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's it's amazing. Okay, so you did that, and then you turn your turrets towards leadership, which is, there's so many ways to cut that pie, but leadership over time proves to be too hard for just the personal benefit. And so it ultimately shows up for people who lead for any length of time. It has to end up somehow being about serving other people, or else you tap out and you do something easier with your life.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So you've been building and serving people, not just in real estate by helping consumers, but you've now been building and serving people in the industry through the brokerage and through your team for a long time now.
Yeah.
What caused you to do that? And then what have you learned as a result?
When we had nothing and we're on the front end of this journey in this horrible time in the Great Recession, Tony DeCello changed my life profoundly, personally, professionally, financially, emotionally. Gary Keller in the book, The One Thing, he has kind of like this appendix where he talks about the first domino.
Yeah.
And he talks about how Walt Disney had Roy, Oprah had her attorney that had her incorporate, and the Beatles had their producer, whose name I can't remember.
The fifth Beatle or whatever.
Yeah, the fifth Beatle. And I'm not saying I'm clearly not as successful as those guys, but they all had a first domino, and my first domino was Tony. And he changed so many people's lives, and that was just how he was wired, and how much he gave to me and to everybody of himself when we were all experiencing that crisis together was monumental and left such a deep imprint on me, on what it means to pay it forward. And so, Reed, I'm not the most emotionally expressive guy, and relationships matter. I express my care for people differently than I think most people do, and the way that I express my care for people is, I think, by doubling down on their ability to achieve success, because I've seen how much of an impact it ripples into all the other parts of their lives.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay neutral here. I'm feeling pretty emotional. And
It's amazing.
And once you do that once or twice, it's pretty compelling. And and if you're doing it with people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, but when you do it with people who are in alignment with you in the pursuit of something, then everybody's winning at the same time.
Love it.
Yeah.
I used to joke around with my wife especially, but people just say like, I'm not very empathetic. And I used to just say it like a script.
Yeah.
But it's actually not true.
Yeah.
And I started realizing that the unbelievable, like just the grind of those same years.
Yeah.
Right. And just you work your fingers till they're bloody, and then you go to bed and exhausted, and you wake up and you
Do it again.
You do it again and again and again. And, and for me, 16 hours a day, 6.5 days a week, right? And the other half a day, I just let the kids crawl on me because it was all I had to offer.
All you had left.
And I started to realize that I actually have a great deal of empathy, because I can look at an agent who's struggling, and I can tell them the hard thing.
Yeah.
I can say, look, like, other people have been where you're at.
Yep.
And if you just keep going, it will get easier. And to be able to do that and have, there's a gravity inside of you that's not like, theoretically you can make it.
You can do it.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah. Well, you've been there. Yeah, that's right. I used to say I'm not very empathetic either. And I think that's something that when you're busy building something and you're working the extra hours and doing the extra tasks, it's hard to slow down and demonstrate that you care. And I misinterpreted that in my behavior. People misinterpreted my behavior as I don't care. But I was actually going so fast to do all these different things. And that's really a takeaway that I've had to learn, is that even as fast as you're going, so much of your behavior when you're in a leadership role, you're always under, what is that? You're always under a microscope. You're always being watched.
Yeah.
And if you don't check yourself and slow down to let people know that you see them and you care about them, whatever that language is for them, because you got to speak their language, you run the risk of losing your influence and ultimately losing the relationship that you have with them, and them checking out and leaving whatever group you're leading.
Yeah. Man, the times that I've confused having hard conversations that are full of empathy with me just moving so fast. And not, it doesn't matter how empathetic I am, if you don't experience that, I'm not serving you.
100%. And that's, man, you nailed it. I should be interviewing you. You want to give me these questions?
No, I'm just, having this conversation brings back a lot of emotions around all of this same things. And it's just like, man, so much hard stuff. And it's almost like when you watch somebody going through hard stuff, they have to take it in by faith that you're not leading them astray.
Yes.
Because you see everything that they're going through and they have no concept of what you went through. All they can do is trust you or not trust you. That they're going to make it if they do A, B, and C.
It's interesting you say trust. I was on a panel today and the moderator was saying something like trust is built with three things: authenticity, empathy, and logic. And I was like, that's really good. And what you just said underscores that. You can have the logic and you can be empathetic, but if you're moving too fast, it won't come across as authentic. And you've lost the trust, and now you're having a really hard conversation in the absence of trust, and that feels like a beatdown. And that doesn't feel good for the people that you're having that conversation with.
So what are some, since we're talking about hard things, what are some of the hard things that you would like to tell agents? So let's just say there's an agent listening and they're, they sell a lot of houses. They sell 15 million a year, they sell 5, whatever. What are some of the things that come from a place of love and care that are maybe hard for them to hear that are good for them?
Whatever cycle of pain or challenge that you're experiencing in your personal life or in your business, that recurring thing is your responsibility. And it's because you're running the same behavioral playbook. It's the same loop day after day, season after season, year after year. And it's your responsibility to elevate your own personal development if you want to experience a different pattern. And we can get pretty complacent when we're successful. With a certain degree of financial success, but can still not be totally emotionally satisfied. Or we're not able to move our business to whatever the next level is that we want, that we perceive we're going to have some emotional satisfaction from or financial satisfaction from. Unfortunately, every time we're stuck in a pattern or in a loop or we can't break through, the problem is you. So that's probably something that people don't want to hear. But
it's hard to hear, but there's no, one of the things that we talked about a couple of the other interviews, everything else is irrelevant because you don't control it.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Right?
Yep. So either you have the wrong mindset, you're taking the wrong actions, or you're responding incorrectly to the stimuli around you. Because that's all that you can do.
That's phenomenal, right? Because if everybody just shut, so somebody's watching this and they shut everything else out, all the noise, and they just break it down to those three things. If they have the right mindset, they take the right action, and they respond correctly, everything that can be controlled will be controlled, and everything else is...
it's noise.
It's just noise.
It's noise. 100%. 100%.
So good. So good.
I don't know about that, but...
No, it really is. Well, and part of what I think makes it so good is the gravity of 20 years of having to live this out and figure it out with the man in the mirror.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And sometimes, like, I'm telling you this because I ran the same frickin' doom loop for like 4 years.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Right? God, like, I'm trying every single frickin' solution and like, what are you doing on this? Maybe I'll try that. Surprise, it was me the whole time. I had to fix myself and like change who I was showing up at the office or showing up with my relationship with my wife or with my kids or with the dog or with myself or at the gym. Like, it's always you.
It is. And it's so funny because it's the most empowering thing imaginable.
Yes.
Right? But it's hard to swallow. It's like, you're overweight. Whose fault is that? It's not your genetics. It's your choices. It's you, right? Like, it's not fair that you're A, B, and C. It's not fair who your parents were. It's just irrelevant.
Yeah. Tony Robbins today at his keynote said, everybody wants to be better, but nobody wants to change. And that's why it's so hard to hear the problem is you.
Yeah. It's one of the things in our company, probably like yours, you're preaching growth all the time. Growth, personal growth. Because you get there and you start believing it.
Yep.
But I think there was a day where I stepped back and realized I'm not actually growing if it's not painful. Because it might be a good path, but it's not really growth. I've already done the mental work to say,
Yep.
I'm happy about this.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just kind of following up. When it's time for me to grow or anybody else to grow, it's growth and pain are kind of synonyms.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. No, that is true. You can read a lot of books and intellectually process them and put them on a shelf and say you read the book, right? Mm-hmm. But if you need to, what I try and do is implement at least one idea from each book I read, and that often includes some kind of pain. Not like major pain, but if I have to change a pattern of my own, or if I have to change how I am showing up with somebody else, or if I have to change a habit, like there's some pain associated with that. If I read a book and I haven't experienced some pain to further myself, either it wasn't a good book or I didn't get the point, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's true. I think that's absolutely true. Can I share an idea?
Oh, absolutely.
Have you ever read Atomic Habits?
Yes. Yeah.
You started with saying, like, what's the first thing that went horribly wrong and what'd you learn when we started all this? And then you said, give me something else. And I was hoping you would ask for one more, because I wanted to share one more concept with you that was really impactful for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I came back to it when we started talking about books and change. 2017, I handed off listings to this gentleman, James, incredibly talented guy, one of my closest friends. And I launched the brokerage at the same period of time. With high standards surrounding being able to launch it. Pressure was high, stakes were high. I was learning an entire new skill set. I was letting go of the profitability of the company, so to speak. It was just an acute, stressful period. And during that time, I actually went to the hospital, and I went to the emergency room, and the physicians had thought I'd had a stroke. And so I walked around thinking that I'd had a stroke at age 44.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is sobering. And through some tests, we learned it wasn't actually a stroke. It was just this thing where, like, my brain had a brain fart, I guess, for lack of a better expression. But it typically, for emergency room doctors, is misdiagnosed as a stroke. But in the process of doing these tests, we found that I've always had a high irregular heartbeat. About 1 out of every 5 heartbeats for mine doesn't work. Well, at that point in time, when they were doing diagnostic tests, they'd found that 1 out of 3 of my heartbeats wasn't working.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's a lot.
That's a problem. Yeah, when your brain is getting and your heart are getting 33% less of the oxygen and nutrients they need to fire, you've got a real problem. And I was on a fast track for a heart attack, and I didn't even realize it. So thank God this thing had happened, and we're aware of it, and so I had to have heart surgery, an ablation, which is like a low-grade heart surgery. It sounds much more dramatic than it was. But that was like, okay, I got to do some stuff differently.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought I was on top of it, Reed, and then 4 months later, I had another panic attack. So I clearly hadn't solved for any of these major feedback, these major pieces of feedback that I can't keep doing what I'm going to do. Okay, so what's my point of all this? So I just decided I would try meditation, and Jason Abrams had talked to me about transcendental meditation, prayer, whatever it is, like some sort of meditation where you're quieting your mind, you're quieting your physiology, and you push your brain into a different place. Mm-hmm. So I tried transcendental meditation and just meditated twice a day for 12 months. I didn't change anything else about my life. Mm-hmm. And then after getting up at 5:30 and doing that for a half an hour before I would start my day, I started to get a little bit more equilibrium, and nerves were coming down a little bit. I was creating a little bit more margin in my brain. And so I thought I would start getting up at 5 o'clock. And so I would meditate from 5 to 5:30, and then I would journal from 5:30 to 6. And it wasn't like, how am I feeling today? Sometimes it was.
Sure.
But normally it was like, I have this business problem. How did I get here? What are my options? What are the choices that I have available to me? What are the implications of those things? Who would be responsible? I was working through all the different problems, all the different events that were going on in my life, personally, professionally, financially. And so I got into that habit for a year. First I had meditation, and then I added journaling onto that. And then after that, I started changing my diet, and I spent the next year changing my diet. And then after that, I added going to the gym and getting in shape. And then after that, another year later, I removed alcohol from my patterns, my behavior. And then after that, I fixed my sleep habits. And I have to tell you, my natural inclination is to like blow everything up and reboot it all at once.
Right.
And so there's a point to all this. I want to land the point. This is one of my big lessons learned as an OG, is as entrepreneurs, we want to blow it all up and rebuild it all at once.
Right.
And when we're young or we're newer, when we have more energy and more drive, that is our inclination, is to blow all this shit up and redo everything all at once.
Right.
And what happens when you do that is you kill all the things for a while, and then they all collapse at once because you shut down because you have no more energy.
Right.
And you're just creating so many fires at the same time that everything burns down. In Atomic Habits, he talks about the 1% rule. Changing 1% of something can have a major difference in the long-term trajectory of whatever you're working on.
Yeah.
And he also talks about the concept of stacking one good habit on top of another.
Right.
And 6 years later, the business is running better than ever, even though we're in this horrible moment in our country's economy. I've never been in better shape. I've never felt better. I've never had better work relationships, personal relationships. And my point of all this is, like, it's okay just to do one change.
Yeah.
We all want to blow everything up and do all these changes at once, but actually if you just identify one thing and really do that well until it becomes part of your natural habits, whether it's a business habit or the habits of your business, a system that you change, you just work on that system until that system really flows.
Yeah.
You just do one thing at a time. It's slower at first, but everything accelerates so much more in the midterm and the long term that you can realize so much more progress in the pursuit of whatever it is that's important in your life.
Yeah.
And we kind of, so I just want to like put that out there for anyone that you said that's like grinding right now and is trying to do something big with their lives. Sometimes pumping the brakes a little bit, or just bringing all that intensity to just one thing and really solving until it's really well done, or at least 80% there, can actually be, going slower actually does sometimes make you go faster.
Man, it's such wisdom. And it was wisdom when I was in my 20s I refused to listen to.
Well, of course you don't listen to it until you've experienced enough pain of doing everything all at once, and then you look up and hopefully somebody watching this podcast is feeling like, I feel like my entire business is on fire, my life is on fire, and do it once, like there's gotta be a different way to do it. Here's the different way to do it. Do one thing at a time.
Yeah, and the fear I had in my 20s was like of going too slow.
Yes.
The reality is
20s, 30s,
30s
and 40s, man.
Yeah, all of it. You're right. The fear is going too slow, but then you realize you just put all of this momentum and all of this exertion into something that you have to redo 20 times, and you actually are the slow one.
Yeah.
You are the person who's creating all of these things that have to be rebuilt and rebuilt. And it's amazing because there's a level of embarrassment that I had when I started doing things that I would say were our success habits. Mm-hmm. Because people are like, what are you doing? And it was these basic, like super simple things like wake up at this time.
Yeah.
And like, well, no, what else? It's like, no, that's actually, that's it. Right? And then fast forward 6 years and somebody's like, what are you doing, Peter? And you give them this long list that makes you sound like,
right.
And they just don't realize, and they're like, okay, that took you 6 years. Yeah, I'll do it in 3 days. Like,
yeah, right.
Doing 3. Like,
do it in 3 years. Try that. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's hard because you see people on stage or like Instagram, and everybody that you look at appears to have it all figured out. Right. And social media has accelerated this perception of I suck, everyone else has it figured out.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. And since I started coaching and you kind of get behind the curtain on people's businesses, you realize who's slowed down and who actually built something and who's just creating this gigantic mess that makes a lot of noise and is really flashy.
Yeah.
And sometimes being boring and being a humble implementer is a lot faster than having the super sexy thing.
It is, and it's and that's hard to swallow until you realize when you look back on your life, like nobody cares about all that flashy stuff. But if you've actually built something, the people that are closest to you are going to be receiving the benefit of that.
100%. Yes. Amen. Hallelujah.
So the whole goal, Peter, of this podcast is to impact, empower, encourage agents, and you have done all of that in spades, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And can I do one other? It's a shameless self-promotion.
Oh, of course.
That might help
please.
agents.
Yeah.
So along the lines of contributing and giving back, I most of my focus on people has been helping people within the Chabris group, right? Or within Keller Williams 7 Hills, which is a little, I guess, stingy or maybe small thinking. And so I've created like a give back platform.
Amazing.
And it's called Lockbox, and it's really just kind of a pay it forward kind of thing. I send out a weekly video email. It's like Realtor McNuggets.
Yeah.
They're like 2 to 3 minute videos, tips, tricks, hacks, strategies, scripts, mindset, financial best practices for real estate agents.
I love it.
And if anybody is watching this and is curious about it, you can sign up at lockboxcoaching.com.
Love it.
It's just a simple email. If it sucks, unsubscribe. But it's basically just things that I've learned over the course of 20 years that have helped me on my journey that hopefully will save you some time on yours.
Yeah, and somebody who's built a big business over 20 years, like 3 minutes in an email, it's going to be helpful.
Yeah, I hope so.
and we'll drop the link in there because that's a huge gift. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Man, this has been fun. Thanks
Yes.
for having me. I really appreciate it.